Hey, it's Peter Cunha, your New Jersey real estate giant, broker owner of Open Doors Realty, here with a very good friend of mine, Dave Rangel from Home Inspections by Dave. How you doing, Dave?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate you being on here. You and I go back a bit. You're our preferred vendor when it comes to all things home inspection. I think what give people a really good point is how did you get started? What's your background? I can certainly give you tons of testimonials of the quality work that you do. So,
Well, my background was originally actually cooking, but I got into doing
I forget about
industrial kitchen design, and I really love doing commercial kitchens. When I left the culinary industry, I opened my own residential renovation business, and I loved taking things apart, figuring out what made them tick, and just really enjoyed working on things. And as I went along, I decided that I really wanted to do more with helping people get an idea of what they're looking at, what they're buying, and so I got into home inspection.
that's it's interesting because I'm gonna drag it out of you a little bit more. You went from cook to okay, we're a home inspector, but there's a lot more in between. Didn't you used to flip houses or renovate homes like on for profit, I guess, at
Well,
some
most of what I did was working on homes that other contractors had kind of messed up, frankly. A lot of contractors really don't enjoy doing renovation. It requires a different mindset than new construction. And I really liked puzzles. I liked going in and figuring out what people did and correcting it and really kind of thinking outside the box for a lot of situations. Older homes, things going back as far as the 1750s, and just really seeing what made things tick, correcting them. I love doing renovations where you would take all the modern conveniences and put them into a home that was 200 years old, but keep the original character of the home so it didn't look like you took a modern kitchen and just dropped it into another space where it really didn't fit the nature of the home. I love doing everything from my own architectural drawings and designs up through framing, construction, plumbing, electrical, everything. I loved every part of the construction through high-end finishing and really just seeing a project go from something that was on the verge of a teardown to completion and just helping my clients really make their dreams kind of come true with what they're looking for. For me, the next transition for that was I really loved problem solving and evaluating things. And so I really was intrigued by the idea of doing home inspections, wood destroying insect inspections, radon inspections. I just love learning about construction. And I take really a holistic approach to a home, not just saying, all right, you've got a leak here, but really getting into why it's leaking. What's the overall picture? How can I help this person out the most so that way we can get their issues solved so they can just have a long, healthy, happy life with their home as opposed to always feeling like, there's always something wrong. They're always at odds with things.
yeah, no, and that's what I mean. You went way too quick from cooking phenom to home inspector because I think that kind of paints a really it paints a really good picture of why we love using you on our home inspections for both our sellers when we do the pre-inspections versus the buyer that comes in. It's like praying that this house is the right house because they've been looking for 2 years and they just don't want to find any major issues. um, One of the things that I love about your reports is kind of the summary page of like, let's highlight all the major issues versus the cosmetic type stuff sometimes that comes up where they're easy fixes. I've even had God knows how many times on the phone with the client direct after the inspection to kind of give us, rough estimates of what's required to make some of these repairs, to make an informed decision of whether or not to, go forward with the house. And at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like people get really pushy for not the right reasons. And we talked about this before. It's like, what I love is all the complaints that I get from sellers agents about how thorough you are. I'll bring one up to mind since I can give this testimonial is we bought that one house in Long Branch where we were the backup offer, and the deal kind of like just fell on the vine. And they had done their own inspections, and you came in, and I guess what was it, the wood destroying termites on the beams in the basement, and structurally it was an issue. And the seller's agent was like, no, the other buyer did inspection. They didn't say anything about that. Well, we're like, okay, we're pointing it out then. So like, it's now disclosed. So, whether or not you want to deal with it with us or somebody else, like, it's an issue. And thank you for that because we were made able to make some adjustments and still move forward with the deal.
Well,
Um,
I think that in a lot of these evaluations, in chaos lays opportunity. I think that if you just look at, oh, there's damage in a home without looking at the overall picture, then a lot of opportunities can be missed, and how to go forward with a sale. And also there's other options to things. Sometimes you'll see multiple systems that are bad on a home, and maybe for the seller, it's looking bad because they're going to get substantially less on a home. Maybe the buyer, if I'm working for them, can't afford the home. But if you combine some of these systems with modern updated equipment, it still allows things to go forward, and everybody comes out happy. It really becomes a true win-win because the sale of the house moves forward for the seller. For the buyer, they're getting a house that they really love, and they're going to have a system that's going to be trouble free more or less for the next 20, 25 years. Most systems in homes only last 20 or 25 years, and most people only own a home for about that same time period. So it's not always bad if something needs work. It means that if you take care of it now, you can be fairly well assured that for that entire time you live there, you're going to have trouble free maintenance on that item, and then you could just enjoy your home.
right. And that's all I want, right? Like, we talked about this off air. It was like, we just want to make sure that people are buying a house that it's not a money pit, right? Like that's usually everybody's fears. Like it's a money pit. It's a money pit. Is this home inspector doing a good job? And it's until they go through the process, especially like how many, we were talking about how I think we've done like 50 transactions this year, right? And it's literally they're doing it one time, and that might be the only time they do it for 40 years. Whereas,
Mhm.
like, we're staying on top of what the guidelines are. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one, but the big headache right now is this lead-based paint kind of certification that the state's requiring, which is adding another level of responsibility on the seller's part. And, it's one of these things that proceed with due diligence as a buyer. And it's you just went through the whole class portion, not necessarily, I guess, the certification part of it.
Correct.
And I don't want to go because that's a whole we could talk about that for another half hour. And we feel very strongly that it's not being done necessarily the most streamlined way. And it's not who's it really benefiting, right? So what I love about it is like I don't have to, other than the environmental stuff, which is, the oil tank sweep and stuff like that, it's it's literally you and our kind of preferred vendor on the oil tank sweeps. And it's usually just the three of us on inspection day. We get it all done typically in under 2 hours or roughly around 2 hours. And we just kind of move on. And thank you, Dave, for being just kind of you usually get me the reports or the buyer or the seller reports in under 24 hours. Sometimes when you're really busy, which was not this market, but 6 months ago. You might need 36, possibly even 48. But it's just thank you. You're a true professional. You don't take shortcuts. I always feel secure after your home inspection that my clients on the buy side are doing, buying a quality home or at least something that's structurally intact. And God knows that we don't necessarily look for the all the pretty houses because quite honestly, I'm looking for the ugly houses. That's what my clients want. So to have somebody like you on the same page that has already done it, and knows where they're coming from, it's really important. So I appreciate you, man. Um, so is there anything that we should know? So it's typically you mentioned a few things. It's the home inspection. If there's a basement, they should get a radon inspection. Um, and we use kind of the zoning. I guess there's a grid. Do you want to talk about like, what's the best way to find out if, there's certain parts of New Jersey that are in high risk radon areas, and then there's some that are like you won't find radon there. You could try. You could give
Yeah, generally there are maps that the EPA has put together, and they're fairly reliable as far as what types of areas are going to be high proclivity for radon. Um, it really just depends on the area. Generally, modern, very well sealed homes tend to have higher radon than older homes, just simply because of the fact that when you have a very well sealed home and you have things like bathroom vents and kitchen vents that duct to the outside, you're creating suction and you're literally pulling the radon out of the ground. Those homes that are in areas where there's a lot of granite in the substrate is generally are the ones that give off the most radon and we're most looking for. But if you're in an area that's predominantly very sandy, like Ocean County, you generally it's a very low level of radon that might possibly be there, and as a result, it's not really necessary to test. It's always a good idea, but it's really not necessary.
right. And that's just one thing because a lot of attorneys are like, no, just get it for, it's all right, we'll get it. It's a couple $100, but some people are trying to cut corners everywhere, right? They shop around for attorneys, they shop around for realtors, right? And it's sometimes we can tell them that you get what you pay for. But it's kind of again, it's one of those things. Hey, listen, if that makes you feel more comfortable, at the end of the day, by all means, go for it. So termites and pests, that's another thing that you test for. So I just want to make sure that I'm covering everything that you're certified for.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, termites, wood destroying insects, carpenter ants, powder post beetles, anything that's going to be gnawing on your house, causing damage that might compromise your structure or cause you issues down the road. We look for all of those types of things, and it's also important to take a look at things that are, past termite treatment. A lot of times you'll see holes around homes in the foundation and such, and if you see evidence of that, even though there's not damage within the home because of the fact that the house is sheetrocked, it's always a good idea. Then you can follow up by asking the seller, if they have records of their treatment. And that way you can just kind of maintain those things, stay on top of it, and that way you're not caught off guard. Really, the job of a home inspector is not just to tell you things that are broken currently, but things that might be coming up so that way you can be prepared and you're not caught off guard financially.
right. And again, just sound advice. We won't, this could be a whole separate video just on the insects, termites, wood destroying insects, but in New Jersey, typically, I had a lot of people. We found a house, we did a pre-inspection. The owner had termites, they had it treated, and that spooked a lot of people out because we were very transparent. We disclosed that up front. And some people are like, oh, I don't want a house with termites. So, what would you say to somebody like that?
Honestly, I'd say probably 70% of the homes in New Jersey probably have termites or some wood destroying insects. They just simply don't know about it. Probably about 30% of homes in New Jersey are currently being treated for wood destroying insects. And most of the treatments are fairly simple. Carpenter ants, for example, the best way to treat them, they put out granules. The granules are taken back to the nest and it wipes out the nest. So a lot of them are really non-invasive treatments, and they're really not a big deal. Termites, if you start to see, mud tubes up the sides of your walls and things, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be massive damage. It just means that they found their way there. The soil tends to be very moist in this area. People a lot of times will do decorative wood around like beams around flower beds and things like that. You never want to have wood in contact with soil. And if you have a fairly dry basement, that will definitely as well help because they need a very high moisture level. So it's really not that big a deal. As long as you treat and you stay on top of it, generally it's not a big deal. It's a very manageable issue. It's really only an issue when the problem has been there for an extended period of time and it's been ignored. That's when you get into things where, like, you might have a sill plate or a beam that's
Sure.
having issues. But that's really the very minority of most cases. Most cases are going to be like, you're going to notice all of a sudden, hey, there's a little bit of a mud tube over here. Well, let's just get it treated, and it's not a big deal at all.
Right, and just I appreciate you saying that because it freaks people out, and, I'm like, "No, it's not as like you said, invasive." I mean, the one house that we saw where the beams just hadn't been treated, it was an old house, so it was like 100
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah, and they would probably had never been treated for that entire 100 years.
Right,
We saw another one recently where there was some mud tubes in a garage, and the house was only 20 years old. Realistically, by the amount of mud tubes we saw, I would think that the termites have probably only been in there for a year, which is very minor. And frankly, if somebody were really concerned, they could even open up walls to do invasive testing. That's not something home inspectors do, but realistically, it's for a home that's very new. It's really shouldn't be a major issue. It does take quite a bit of time before a structure is compromised.
yeah, and Dave, we could talk, I mean, it's funny, I just listened to a 7-hour podcast where it's like, I finished it, I wanted more, which is never the case, right? Usually it's like, there's a good hour on it and, you can 20 minutes is good talk, and then 40 is just fluff, but, I could go on and on. I think I wanna do more follow-ups with you. If you're open to this, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Would you do kind of, tales from the home inspection or some,
Absolutely.
all right, awesome. So Dave, what's the best way to get in touch with you other than reaching out to me? And this is for
You,
all your realtors out there. If you're looking for a really good home inspector, I'm gonna give him the double thumbs up sign of approval and yeah, just super nice guy.
you can always reach me at my website, homeinspectionbydave.com, or you can reach me on my cell 917-447-1814. I'm available 24 hours a day. I go everywhere in New Jersey. My reports are always returned in 24 hours. And I'm always happy to help out afterwards as well to save people time, rather than trying to figure out what a report is talking about. You're always welcome to give me a call and ask questions.
Yeah, and, just I'm gonna throw this in before we sign off. This is not just for buyers. If you're thinking about selling, the one thing that I always recommend is, Dave and I, we've done quite a lot of, homes together. If you're thinking about selling, Dave and I can come to your house. He can take a look. Here's the repairs that we would do, and, we can certainly work. And if you don't have money, that's something that we discussed. Dave and I, we've certainly kind of package something where we wrap in the price, where he gets paid, I take care of it, but on the on the closing date. So, don't get overwhelmed with costs and stuff like that.
Yeah, a pre-inspection before a sale is a really smart way to go because it just removes a lot of those unknowns of what a different home inspector is going to find for the seller. And if you take care of all of those issues in advance, you're just really removing all the speed bumps that could possibly mess up your sale down the road. And it just allows everything to go forward smoothly.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. And yeah, we can go on case studies, but like I said, let's do the video series so we can bang these out real quick, and kind of focus on small little snippets so people can just focus on those little areas. Dave, thank you for your time, brother. I think I'm seeing you next week for a home inspection. So I'll be in touch, all right, bud?
Take care.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you for having me on.